13. 13 is always my number. 13 is how old I was the first time I considered ending my life. 13 is the number of people that I lost before high school was even over. 13 has always guided me, for better or worse. In 2023, 49,316 people in America died by suicide. Every day, 13 of these senseless deaths are children between the ages of 8 and 17 years old. When you walked in tonight, you were handed a small anonymous piece of paper. It had 3 simple but meaningful questions on it. And as I walked on the stage, you should have all gotten one in return. As I read each question, if the answer circled is yes, I invite you to stand. If that is difficult for some, go ahead and just raise your hand. All right. Have you ever known someone who has attempted suicide? If your answer is circled yes, please stand. Okay. Have you ever lost someone to suicide? Please stand. Have you ever felt deeply alone, disconnected from those around you or from your community? Please stand. Thank you. Go ahead and sit. I saw most of you take the time to look around you. That is what connection is. You are not alone, and when we stand together, we are stronger. We do not have to live in the shadows, not of pain, not of shame, and not of silence. There was a darkness inside of him that he couldn't escape. These are the words that Simba told his daughter about Scar. Yeah, I'm that girl. Childish as that may be, they have lived rent-free in my heart for years. Because again, I was only 13 when I first considered my own death. I had already lost so much. My best friend wasn't allowed to be my friend anymore because of religious differences. We said goodbye to my dog, the dog I'd had since the day I was born. My grandmother died after being misdiagnosed for 4 years. And my family as I knew it was torn apart after my parents' brutal divorce. My mom and I barely spoke. My dad was drowning his sorrows in alcohol. My sister left for college on the other side of the country, and my brother was significantly older than me and wasn't making time for the family, understandably. Everything that made my life feel safe was now gone. I felt invisible in a house, well, 2 houses, that should have protected me, should have noticed me, and held me close. They didn't. It was then that I started cutting. It's not because I wanted to die, at least not yet, but I just wanted to feel something, anything. My life was out of control, but I could control that blade, and I could control that pain. I remember thinking that if someone sees these cuts, maybe they'll ask. Maybe they'll stop me, bring me to a hospital. Somebody at a hospital's got to care, right? But no one noticed. And then I was assaulted. I had no one to tell. My family had already written my story for me. I had overheard a conversation years sooner than that. I would be the first to have sex. I would be the first to have an unplanned child, a child my mother was going to have to raise for me. It was the kind of moment that carves a new path in your psyche. That night, I stopped being a kid and I started to be a statistic. My body was no longer my own, and I learned the hardest truth of them all, that the world can look you in the eye, and still not see you. I felt like an object, a toy, something disposable. It was then that I knew I was done here, and I made a plan. I knew my mom's work schedule. I knew exactly how long I was supposed to be alone after school, and exactly what I could do in that hour. Every day was the same. Landon and I walked home from school. We'd jump the fence, walk through the house. He'd go straight to the front door, hug me, and go home. But not that day. That day, Landon stayed. We talked about nothing important. He grabbed snacks, and we laughed. All the while, I was standing there trying to figure out why. Why is he still talking? Why hasn't he left? I haven't said anything. I hadn't done anything different. Why is he still here? Then my mom walked through the door. Landon instantly hugged me, held me close, told me he loved me, and walked out the door. Something shifted inside of me right then. I felt seen, like really seen. Like, dare I say I mattered? There was no dramatic movie rescue. There was no ambulance, no intervention. There was just that small sliver of connection. And it interrupted everything, not just physically, but mentally. It pulled me back to the real world, and now more than ever, I can say confidently that connection is key. Connection saves lives. I've lost more people than others will in a lifetime, and in high school, I lost 13 friends to suicide. 13. David was the first, and I can still feel that moment. It was weeks before my junior year. I was grounded, some teenage rule I had broken. But when the phone rang, my mom walked it upstairs. She said, "It's Landon, and it's for you." I was shocked. I immediately asked him, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" And his voice came across the line, and he said, "David's dead. He killed himself." I collapsed. I sobbed. And immediately, I was crushed by guilt. David and I had grown up together. We'd been in the same schools. We have always had the same classes. We talked every morning at the bus stop. And even though it was summer, David and I lived 2 blocks away. 2 blocks. The weight of his decision felt like it was on me. If I had told my story, would David still be here? Was this in any way my fault? But then, he always seemed so happy. How did I know he was supposed to hear it? 13 months later, the last of my 13 died. Some were close friends, others were just acquaintances, people I'd been in school with for years but didn't really know. The pain was different with each of them, but they all hurt, especially with David and with Brad. Brad had graduated the year before me. We remained close, and he was the only person I had ever told my story to. The only one. So when I got the phone call that Brad killed himself, I didn't cry. I wasn't mad. I didn't scream. I looked at my friend and I said, "But we had plans. We were going to the football game next weekend. Brad couldn't be dead." The year that Brad died was also the first year that Syracuse High School opened. And by spring of that year, Syracuse had been nicknamed Suicide High. in the first 7 months of a school year. It was clearly a critical moment here in Utah. Something was undoubtedly happening, but no one would talk about it. What we needed was not silence. What we needed was someone who had lived through it, who could show others that there was life after death. We needed to know that we were seen, that we mattered, and that there is always somebody who cares. The start of the following school year, I went back to my alma mater, my high school. I asked the principal to speak with him. I asked to speak with the kids. But they responded with an unequivocal no. You're too young. They're not going to listen to you. You're too inexperienced. And then they told me, if you talk about suicide, they're going to think about suicide. Were they not thinking about it already? 13 years after high school, I became a mom. One night, while rocking my daughter back to sleep, her bedroom illuminated with a blinding white light, and my whole body tingled head to toe. It was almost like electricity. And I heard a voice, clear, calm, and strong, clear as the day is. And it said, this little girl is going to change the world. Raise her well. Immediately, the room was dark. The chills dissipated. Call it sleep deprivation. Call it imagination. Maybe call it divine intervention. Whatever it is, I honestly don't care, because in that moment, I knew that my healing was not about me. It was about her. My healing was necessary to break the cycles, to find a way to raise her in a world that felt safe, whole, and loved. And don't get me wrong, some days I feel like I'm failing. I fail at business. I fail at work, day job. I fail in my marriage. I absolutely fail in motherhood. Once in a while, I see the look in her eyes, the fire in her soul, and I know that I'm doing a pretty good job. 3 years ago, I created In Omnia Paratus events. I just wanted to create moments of joy to celebrate with the community. I wanted to bring us back to each other, and that is exactly what I've done. This year, though, I took a step back. We've had too much loss this year. My family needed me more than my business did. But as a part of my healing, I started the Bad Moms Club of Utah. It's a group for good women, not necessarily moms, with bad habits. We just don't fit that Utah mold, and that's okay, y'all. We are women who strive to live a judgment-free lifestyle, who need adult friendships and a way to grow them. At first, it was a way for me to create my own space, to get me out of the house once a month, to stop being just mom or just a business owner, and to really be able to reach in and feel something different from time to time. And then something crazy happened. We actually connected. Not in a perfect way, but in a real way. Those connections have come in the form of slumber parties. No, not sleepovers. It came as dressing like celebrities and going to Keys on Main. It came as afternoons in the park. And at our last event, it came in the form of forgetting product at home, howling winds that lifted the paint plate straight off the table and smack into Maddie's face, one of our friends. It was a last-minute venue change miles away back to my house, where my daughter inevitably joined Mom's Night Out. On paper, it was imperfect. At best, it was chaotic and messy. And it was perfect. Because true human connection doesn't need perfection. True connection just needs presence. Connection, in this instance, was the simple joy of making memories. Sometimes, though, it looks a little different. Sometimes it looks like boundaries. One of the most powerful moments of connection came a couple years after I walked away from one of my friends, Sean. He had always struggled with addiction. I tried to help him. I gave him a home. I set boundaries. And when he broke them, I walked away. As much as it hurt, I had to hold strong. Nearly 2 years after our last conversation, he reached out to me on Facebook. He invited me to his sobriety ceremony. He was celebrating 1 year clean. His message said, "You were the only one who ever helped me, who ever believed in me. It would mean everything to have you there." I struggled with that choice. My boundaries hold strong. But I went. And when I walked in that room, I saw his eyes light up like the sun. We hugged. I cried. He said that me walking away from our friendship, it shuffled his mindset. It changed things for him. Love sometimes means walking away. Sean stayed sober for the past 6 years. And last month, while I was preparing for this speech, Sean relapsed and died. I was gutted. And when the guilt started to creep in, I had to remind myself, read that journal every day, that I did everything I could do for him. I showed up, I loved him the best that I could, and I walked away. I supported his recovery, and when he finally settled down and got married, I celebrated his love with him. But the truth is this: you can't save everyone, no matter how hard you try. The lessons I have learned from each of these deaths throughout high school, I've carried with me. I've carried them through more loss, more suicide throughout the years, including the loss of my father-in-law. Watching suicide affect those you love from the inside out was a whole new world for me. One I wouldn't wish on anyone. There's no time to grieve or to be angry or to process. There was just no more time. I can tell you that no matter what it is, no matter who it is, suicide never gets easier. And what's worse is that it's not always obvious. More often, suicide ideation is a hidden pain. Think about Robin Williams, much beloved, funniest and kindest soul in modern day. He too took his life. Even he couldn't escape the darkness inside of him. 20 years after the first time that I had requested to speak, I am finally here, and I finally get to speak. 20 years of extreme loss, of suicide, and of survival. And yet I come here today not with all the answers. Instead, I come here as someone who has lived through the unspoken and still chooses to speak. Because silence is dangerous, and the stakes are literally life and death. Between the year I was supposed to die, 2004, and now, over 1 million Americans have taken their own lives. We are still sitting here wondering why. We're more connected than ever, right? Right? Aren't we? That's what we're told. Somehow we're lonelier than ever. 48% of Americans feel hopeless. 20% feel isolated. 20% of the adults in the United States, that is 52 million adults, that feel isolated, unloved, uncared for, unconnected. Social media, for all its promise of connection, has become a highlight reel, one that disguises the truth behind what we really are, the lives we truly live. We see filtered photos, we see curated moments of joy, and we wonder why we're so empty in comparison. The truth is that no one's life is perfect, and behind every screen could be someone screaming for help. Since the rise of social media in 2004, suicide has jumped 37%. Between the year 2007 and 2020, 13 years, suicide rates in our children have increased 62%. Cyberbullying, pro-harm and suicidal content, fear of missing out, and mental health are all leading factors. And that is why I am passionate about this message. You remember at the beginning of the speech when you stood together with and for each other. That is the power of connection. You are not alone, and you don't need to feel alone. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be okay. You just need real, messy human connection. My story is not always beautiful, but there is beauty in all of it. It's in the friend who stayed the day that I was supposed to die. It lives in the book I wrote, reminding parents that a birthday is not about going broke or throwing an epic celebration. It's about the memories. It's about the stress-free fun and the connection between you, your child, and your tribe. The beauty resides in the affinity astron. It's a soul guide I have created to help you rediscover your North Star, yourself. And like the first star in a constellation, it lights the way, connecting you to your truth, your people, and to the place that you call home. That beauty is in the way my husband looks at me when we tease each other or he dances with me in the kitchen, however rare that may be. It's in my daughter who reminds me every day why I chose life. There is beauty in every lesson learned and in the messy moments with paint and rain and laughter. In the friends I have lost and the ones who have found their way back to me. This year, I chose me because healing isn't linear. Like a flower growing through concrete, it requires struggle. It requires fighting through darkness to find the light you need. This year, I rebranded my company, a company I built, a company I love, to better serve each of you. J Penn Planning has allowed me to lean in and step into my true calling, first as a connection coach, then as a published author, and now as a public speaker. I have chosen as a part of my healing to not be afraid, not of the no's or of the yeses or of the vulnerability it takes to share the words which I so deeply needed to hear back then. You matter. Your story matters. And you are not invisible. because I see you. I see each of you, and I see me in you. Please never forget that help is available. 988 is available to call or text 24 hours a day, and it is not a machine on the other end. It is real-life humans, volunteers, at all hours, ready to talk, hoping to help. Hospitals have teams trained to help you, and therapy changed my life. But even with all of that, nothing replaces real-life connection. And when we build on connection, one smile, one story, and one meaningless conversation at a time, we will undoubtedly save countless lives. Thank you, y'all.